It was at that very moment where there were no more Christians. There were no more Christ followers. There was no one who said, all right, let's keep this movement going. In fact, it said that they all deserted, that they all left. See, Jesus' crucifixion was not what they saw coming. It wasn't what they were expecting. And that's why we pick up in the Gospel of Luke, as all these people began to write about this story, they let us in on exactly what they were expecting. Luke chapter 24 starts this way. It says, on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, women took spices that they had prepared and went to the tomb. And that they found the stone that was rolled away from the tomb, but while they entered, they didn't find the body of Lord Jesus. And they were wondering about this, and then suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood before them. Interesting for followers of Jesus, right? I mean, the whole purpose of going to the tomb was to prepare a dead body. See, at that point, they had no hope that Jesus was coming back. They were going to honor someone they loved, someone that they cared about, but they weren't going to find a resurrected Jesus. And in fact, when they didn't see his body, the writer of Luke, he says, they were wondering about it. They weren't sure what was happening. There was nothing that triggered their mind to say, oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. He did say something about coming back from the dead. Interesting, the story continues on. In Luke chapter 24, verse 9, it says, they came back from the tomb and they had saw this angel who said, listen, Jesus is risen. He is alive. And they began to tell everybody else. It was Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and the others who came with them. And they told them these things. It says, but they didn't believe the women because their words seemed like nonsense. And they had all given up hope. They had all come to the realization that when Jesus died on the cross, all their hopes died with it. That the movement was gone. Peter, however, being Peter, gets up and he runs to the tomb and he bends over and he sees the strips of linen laying there by himself and he went away. And then Luke writes this down. And he wondered to himself what had happened. It wasn't that he ran away and he said, all right, finally, this is exactly what I knew was going to happen. A resurrected Jesus. Finally, things are going to kick into place now. Now he walks away from the tomb and he says, I'll get it. I mean, I was with Jesus and I saw him do the ministry and I believed in him and I followed him. And yeah, there was a couple of times where I denied him, but I really, truly felt like he was going to change our world. And then I watched from afar his last breaths. And I watched them take his body down. And I watched them put it in the tomb. And here's what we expect. Just like the early disciples, we expect dead people to stay dead. And it's true for them that day that they thought Jesus was going to stay dead. That's why they went to the tomb that day. They had no anticipation of him rising at all. See, here's what happened. They saw the worst possible thing happen to the best person they knew. That was their reality. The worst possible thing was this public execution where they was riddled with just insults and injury and a death that was so shameful and public. They saw the worst possible thing happen to the best person that they knew. And here's the difference between you and me and them. We read about the story, but they lived it out. And they saw everything, and they had no reason to believe in a resurrected Jesus. And that's why they showed up at the tomb. They didn't show up expecting to find Jesus resurrected, sitting there and ready to march forward. They showed up there expecting to find his body deceased, broken, and to give him his last respects. And they had given up hope that his movement would march them further. Norman Cousins has a quote that I think is really interesting. He says this: "The tragedy of life is not death, but what we let die inside of us while we live." And I'm here to tell you that there's probably a few people in this room that you're like, oh, there's some things that I've let die. You know, this is where the disciples were. They had invested the last 3 years with Jesus, following him around and hoping that he would once again restore the nation of Israel. But at this point, on this morning, they had let that hope die. This is their story. See, they didn't believe in a resurrected Christ because of what